Just a reminder, you can watch full episodes on my app or join me at joycemeyer.org. I'll see you soon. You know, God doesn't use these analogies just for something to do. He calls Jesus our good shepherd because there's lessons we can learn from studying a shepherd's relationship to his sheep. He calls us sheep because there's lessons we can learn from studying the nature of sheep. Why don't you just take a little bit of time? I mean, you can look it up. You can find anything you want now in an instant online. Just look up the nature of sheep and see what you get. You'll recognize yourself pretty quick. I recognize myself. All right. Some sheep are known to be cast down more than others, and only the diligence of the shepherd helps them survive. When a sheep is cast down, predators move in. For the sheep, it's buzzards, vultures, dogs, coyotes, and cougars. For us, it's the devil. He moves in because a sheep that is cast down, depressed, discouraged, downtrodden, sad, lost their joy, is easy prey for the enemy. The devil does everything he can to keep us sad and mad, but God wants us glad. Because really and truly, our joy is found in strength. We had our yearly women's conference a couple weeks ago in St. Louis, and a girl came that I'm aware of whose brother had just suddenly died, and it was just a really sad time for her. We know the family, and I was quite impressed that she decided to come. You know, a lot of times when we're hurting, we just want to go hide away somewhere and just hurt, and you know, maybe that's the way you need to handle it sometimes, but she decided to go ahead and come. So I talked to her dad the other day, and I said, well, how's she doing now? And he said, you know, she's doing really good. She said that she laughed at that conference more than she had in a whole year. Okay, so now here she was. She had this terrible loss in her life. She came to the house of God. She not only heard the word, but she laughed harder than she had in a year, and it brought restoration to her life. Let me tell you something. We need to take every opportunity that we can to giggle, to laugh, to smile. Let's stop being a sourpuss about everything that's going on in our lives that we don't like and find reasons to laugh. You know what? I'm getting older, and I have already prayed that I will be the funniest old person that anybody has ever seen in their life. I mean, I am not going to be a cranky old lady who sits around. I mean, I've got my mindset ahead of time. My kids are going to love me. They are going to love being around me. Dave is going to love being around me. I am just going to be so funny. And let me tell you, last week when I accidentally brushed my teeth with A&D ointment, they thought I was funny. I mean, I'm getting comical. I do some stuff. I mean, it's like, my kids are like, Mother, could you wait till we park the car to get out of it? You know, I'll leave this conference today and I'll start thinking about the next one in Tampa. I'm always like, there's nothing better than having joy. You know, well, I'm just so down. I'm just so discouraged. Well, go find something to laugh about. Follow me around for a year. Jesus has special concern for those that are cast down in life, and he always helps them stand up again. So listen, if you've had a lot of problems and you're down today and you're discouraged, or you're watching by television and you feel down and discouraged, you've had a year of depression, you've had a lot of loss in your life, let me tell you something. Jesus has got his eye on you. He is very concerned about you, and he's even trying to talk to you right now through me to say, I care about you. Let me set you upright again. Let me get you back in the program of life. You don't have to stay on your back forever. I love Acts 10:38. See how God anointed Jesus of Nazareth, who went about doing good, and in particular curing all that were oppressed of the devil. So I see Jesus just every day, he just went about looking for people that needed a lift in life. I wonder what would happen if more Christians would make that their ministry. Well, I just wish God would show me what my ministry is. Well, until he does, let's just give you the ministry of encouragement. Or how about what it says in the Psalm, serve the Lord with gladness. How about if we give you the ministry of gladness? And you just serve the Lord, being glad and making other people glad. There's no excuse for us to sit around bored and miserable when there's too many other people that are more bored and miserable than we are that we could pour into their life and help make them better. Let me tell you something, the longer I preach today, the happier I get. I mean, seriously, when you wake up in the morning and you don't feel so good, don't just sit around and talk about how bad you feel all day. Get up, go somewhere, find something to do that's worth doing, and you'll be surprised you'll start feeling better. You think I feel good all the time when I wake up in these hotels? No. Let me tell you, it does not look like this when I get it out of bed. Now, when we're weak, instead of rebuke and rejection, the shepherd gives special care to the weaker sheep in the flock. Wow. 2 Corinthians 11:29. Paul says, who is weak, and I do not feel his weakness? Who is made to stumble and fall and have his faith hurt, and I am not on fire with sorrow or indignation? So Paul said, listen, there's not one of you that's weak that I don't feel your weakness. He wasn't judging and criticizing them. He said, I feel your weakness. Well, I think that we have to look at some of the things that Paul went through to look at what brought him to that place that he could feel the way he did about other people's weaknesses instead of judging them and criticizing them. Because sometimes we look at people and think, well, you know, you've been in church 20 years. You ought to know better than to act like that. Well, yeah, maybe, but, you know, what's your problem? You know? Come on. You know, we're always quick to judge people that have a problem in an area where we have a strength. Good preaching, Joyce. Thank you. And why are the kind of things that I'm saying so important? Because God commands us to love one another. One new commandment I give you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. By this love shall all men out there that are lost and going to hell know that you are my disciples. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that Paul went through. Let's back up to verse 24, 2 Corinthians 11:24. 5 times I received from the hand of the Jews 40 lashes, all but one. 3 times I've been beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I've been aboard a ship, wrecked at sea. A whole night and a day I've spent adrift on the deep. Many times on journeys, exposed to perils from rivers, perils from bandits, perils from my own nation, perils from the Gentiles, perils in the city, perils in the desert places, perils in the sea, perils from those posing as believers but destitute of Christian knowledge and piety. In toil and hardship, watching often through sleepless nights, in hunger and thirst, frequently driven to fasting by want, in cold and exposure and lack of clothing. And besides all those things, there are the daily inescapable pressures of my care and anxiety for all the churches. Verse 29, who is weak and I don't feel his weakness? You know what? I don't know that we can have real compassion on people that are hurting and going through things if we've never been through anything ourselves. You know, Paul probably had a strong case of pride in the beginning. Paul was a very religious man, a Pharisee of Pharisees, highly educated, he had it all. He said, if anybody had anything, I had more. I had everything. And when that's the case, you usually get pretty full of yourself. Now, I don't know, there's a lot of things about Paul's life that we're not told. I mean, it says that he was called into ministry after he was confronted by God on the Damascus road, and He went into ministry, but you don't hear very much about him for about 13 years before he presented himself to the apostles. Now, he was doing things, but it's interesting that we go through hidden years with God before we begin our public years with God. Joseph had hidden years with God. Moses had hidden years with God. And I can guarantee you that I had many hidden years with God. And it's in those years when you're going through things that you don't understand and things aren't happening for you and you're trying to hang on to your faith in God and you're being judged and criticized by your friends and just all the different things that we go through, that God uses those things to do a work in your heart. So when he finally does put you in a position to maybe be over some people or do something with people, you have a proper attitude of understanding where people are coming from. Let me tell you something. If you like maybe are a smoker and you want to quit and it's been really, really hard for you, I've got compassion because I had a hard time with that. If you struggle with your weight, I understand that because I was a chubby teenager and I struggled with that. I mean, I've been on 1 million diets in my life before I finally got victory. But when you talk to somebody who, I mean, let's just say that you struggle with your weight and you talk to somebody that's got a real fast metabolism and they can eat anything they want and never gain an ounce, they don't get you. There's no way they get you. They're just like, well, just don't eat so much. I mean, I went through a period where I thought my metabolism's not slow, man, it's in a coma. It's like, mine died, I think, and needs a resurrection. And yeah, I've got victory now, and I've got, I know what I can do and what I can't do, and God gives me the grace to do it, but I went through a lot to get here. And so, when you're going through things, don't always get so upset that God's not delivering you right away, because you may just be getting some experience and some education for some of the things that God's going to use you for later on in life. Amen? I invite you to join me in the Joyce Meyer app or at joycemeyer.org today for more on this topic and other teachings. I believe God will use these to help you in your everyday life. I'll look forward to seeing you there.